Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. I hope everyone is doing all right. Let me check my sound. I always check my sound between videos. You can see the mic moving, so at the very least I know it's working. I wasn't planning on doing videos today. I had a doctor's appointment, and sometimes my powers are somewhat low after it, so I don't necessarily plan videos on those days. But I'm awake. Everybody else is asleep, so why not? I didn't get the chance to fully plan these videos because, like I said, because I didn't necessarily have and realize I was going to do these videos. So if I sometimes I'm not crisp anyway, so it doesn't matter. But there are several videos that I have in my queue that I had sitting in my queue yesterday, so at the very least I'm versed on those. I noted the other day, I think it was a few days ago, that Invisible Man Joe Crowley showed up on the ballot line for Workers' Families Party. Now, when they wanted him to show up at the debate, he was nowhere to be found. They saw him on Twitter earlier, a few blocks away or something, but he wasn't anywhere to be found in the debate hall that he said he was going to be at. So I started calling him the Invisible Man. But unfortunately, the Invisible Man became aware of the capability of being visible, especially in places where he's not wanted. And in this case, on the line of the Worker Families Party. So there are certain quirks in the way New York goes about its affairs from the standpoint of politics. Workers Families Party is going to be on the ballot. The person who they chose as their nominee was Joe Crowley. When Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez won the race, the gentleman for Workers Families Party, the head of the party, called him and said, evacuate the line. We got our candidate. She's running for the Democratic Party. That's who we want also running for our party. We don't want both of you in the same race because we don't want you to detract from her votes. She beat the stuffing out of you. It was somewhat embarrassing. It was almost as if you weren't even on the ballot. We don't want you on the ballot. You may end up taking enough votes from her to put the Republican in office. Evacuate your line. Now, Joe Crowley acts as if this is some kind of mystical process, that there are wizards and warlocks and scientists that have come together and have never been able to find a way to get themselves off of the line in regards to the election. Process is pretty straightforward. You choose another slot. But Joe Crowley acts as if he's befuddled by this. He's confused by the entirety of the process. The boss of New York is wanting to stay on the line. Now, personally, I think this is rather audacious and shameless in the sense that this is somewhat of a bare-chested attempt to get back into office, kind of with a smile on your face while grabbing your ass, or I should say a solemn face ass grab. Here's the catch. He says when this is brought to his attention, he says, wait a minute. There we are. He says, Alexandria, the race is over and Democrats need to come together. I've made my support for you clear in the fact that I'm not running. We've scheduled phone calls and your team has not followed through. I'd like to connect, but I'm not willing to air grievances on Twitter. Well, from our understanding, there were 3 calls that Crowley, Invisible Man, true to his name, didn't show up for. When she brought this up on Twitter and he said this nonsense, he's still on the ballot. I've made my support for you clear. Yeah, but we're talking about you still being on the ballot line. Why are you still on the ballot line? You need to move from the ballot line. That's what we're talking about. And then there's this. There's this. Right here. This is the next thing for this. Vote Joe Crowley for Workers' Families. Alexandria Cortez hurts the party, Congress, and even America. Who is this by? Joe fucking Lieberman. Goddamn decrepit, carcass-riddled Joe Lieberman. I don't know the feather that tickled Joe Lieberman's ass that morning for him to get up and pen this dribble. I don't know if that feather is named Nancy Pelosi. I don't know if that feather is named Joe Crowley. But whatever that feather was, decrepit Joe Lieberman felt the need to either pin or get somebody else to pin, and feared that his own fingers would fall off if he was trying to write this particular document. Ultimately, it's a letter for Vote Joe Crowley, trying to explain the failings and the failures of why Elizabeth Ocasio-Cortez would essentially spell doom to America and the party itself. It's pretty amazing. I'm going to link to both, but the point I want to get here is, lefties, remember this. When Joe Crowley continually asks Alexandria, I don't know why I want to call her Elizabeth, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, will you vote for me when you lose? Will you vote for me? And she said, I have to go back to my constituency. He continually tried to get her to advocate for her support, meaning he wanted to lock her into supporting his candidacy when everyone thought he was a foregone conclusion for the race. Now, the amazing part to this is, the minute this race is over with, he says you're born to run, stays on the worker family party line, and then out of the blue, even though he's supposed to have already given his support, you have cronies, dinos, carcasses, Joe Lieberman, dragging himself from the shadows, stabbing from the grave. Stabbing from the grave. Remember this, lefties. When you're in that race and they're asking you whether you support their candidacy, have no doubts or fears. Have no issue at all with breaking away if you lose and running against that party. It is possible. It is possible. It is true that Joe Lieberman, that Joe Crowley got the stuffing beat out of him. But it is technically possible for him to drain enough votes out of the electorate in order to get Crowley back in office. Do you believe that the Democratic Party wouldn't necessarily want that? Do you believe that Joe Lieberman just dragged his rancid ass up in order to write this particular document attacking Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez just for shits and giggles, for no reason at all? Her win was an earthquake. I don't think this is a situation where they allowed her to win just to allow her to win. The behavior of Joe Crowley in this is as such as either Crowley himself or the party itself has made some kind of determination that they want to try to slide him into office, but they can't say anything overtly to go against it, meaning he can't run openly for that seat because he will be repudiated for that. That would go against too much in the standpoint of justice and too much from the standpoint of fairness, and even that level of shame, I think, would probably be too much to bear. That being said, maybe if you can get Republicans who are scared of a socialist being in office, maybe if you can get a few centrists to step over the line, maybe those Republicans think to themselves, well, look, my candidate is not going to win, but I don't want that socialist in office. We can go back to the strategy of Hillary and Trump, where both of them try to tear each other down enough to say the world is going to end if either one of them gets in office. So vote for me, and trying to get other people to pull people into their electorate based on hatred of the candidate that's running. It is possible that that takes place. It is possible that what Joe Crowley and what Lieberman are doing here is trying to pull enough votes, not just from the Democratic part of the spectrum, but also from the right, especially if the right don't think that their person is going to win anyway. I understand that some lefties look at this and say, so what? I don't think this is a so what thing. I think this is a big fucking deal. Joe Crowley, who's supposedly a Democrat, who's saying he's not running against Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, as he currently runs against Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez as the party, dinosaurs of the party, stabbed from the grave. They would rather her lose. They would rather her lose than the Republican win. I'm saying that poorly, but they would rather her lose, or they would rather they would rather her lose as opposed to her getting in that office, even at the expense of potentially a Republican taking that seat. Remember this. Anytime they're trying to say, will you support us afterwards? Remember what Joe Crowley in this moment, in this ignoble moment, is doing. Trying to get her support, but not giving it in return. This is pretty amazing. lying all the while that he can't do anything about taking himself off the line, when everybody knows it's somewhat of a bare-chested lie. So I'm not going to keep this one long because there's not much on this one, but I'm putting both articles at the bottom for you to see. The heavy article just had basic details about what was taking place. I've gone over this stuff before. Look, I don't think the Democratic Party wants her in office. And if it was me, and my name was Joe Crowley, I'll be doing this too. Just saying. Because it's kind of like Brexit to some degree. It's there's certain things that you can't politically do in the open, but you can try to politically do in the shadows. I can't necessarily state it, even though that is what I am trying to do. Technically, I am giving you my support, but yes, I'm staying on the line in this way of trying to slide myself into office through this kind of backdoor, slimy way. It's kind of like Brexit, where the Tory government says, okay, we're having a referendum, but the referendum was assuming that nobody would actually vote for Brexit. And now you have a problem. You can't deliver the Brexit that you want. By the same token, the Brexit that you're going to deliver is going to be worse than if you stayed in the European Union, but you can't tell the public that because you already gave the public a referendum and told them that they had the ability to choose. And if you turn around and say, well, okay, we understand that we told you had the ability to choose, but you kind of chose wrong, so we need you to choose again. You can't do that. It breaks democracy at that point. So you end up with a worst case scenario or a horrible scenario. In this case, though, then maybe these things aren't alike. I guess I'm saying they're similar in the sense of Crowley can't outright say that he's going to run as a third party, while at the same token, he is running as a third party under the Workers' Families Party, even though they don't want him. So I'm going to end this one. I know some of these are relatively short, but I have a few that I want to get through before getting to ones where I can kind of bring in audience participation. So thanks, guys. But in a nutshell, Invisible Man Joe Crowley is very visible on the ballot. And even though they don't want him for the Workers' Families Party, he's staying on the Workers' Families Party, lying that he can't necessarily take himself off that line, even though, yes, he can take himself off that line. And Decrepit Joe Lieberman, out of the blue, pins an editorial in the Wall Street Journal saying that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez will bring the end of reality. Henceforth, vote Joe Crowley to preserve the status quo. I'll end it here. All right, guys, if you enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you can always support through Patreon. Thanks, guys.